Okay, the next spiritual sense is clear hearing. And the French word for this is clairaudience. How it works is you could be hearing physically or internally, meaning physically means with your physical sense, internally is like with your spiritual sense. So this is where there can be a little confusion, because you could be talking to someone, or like, let's say someone has clairaudience and they have clairaudience, and they say something like, I hear this, or I hear this message, or I heard this message earlier. You might think they're talking about their physical ears. It's not always the case. Sometimes it's almost like discerning something you hear from your own thoughts. You know how you're talking to yourself all day long? Sometimes those voices aren't yours. Sometimes they're your guides, your angels, God, your intuition speaking to you. And so if you tend to hear phrases, or if you happen to be a speaker or a writer, really talented with communication, it could be that you have this spiritual sense very strong, and that you haven't really discerned between your own voice and the voice of heavenly support. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of let you know that this could be actually hearing something with your physical ears, that's not really there. It's not like a car beeping its horn and that's actually there. I mean, you actually hear it like as if someone were talking to you, or making a sound, versus your spiritual ears. Now, it could be sounds, music, lyrics. I've had lyrics come to mind sometimes. And I feel like my intuition uses this quite a bit, because like the lyrics can have some kind of meaning there, depending on what they are. And sometimes there's some kind of hidden answer in there. Like, especially if you just hear a phrase from a song, like go look up that phrase, read the rest of the song. Chances are that there could be a really cool clue in there for you. Also, ringing in ears can happen. You could also hear spirits talking, whether audibly through your physical ears or your spiritual ears, and then other noises. And it can include sensations, like your ear actually feeling different than normal, like a pain or a sensation or a tickle. Vibrations, or like, do you ever get like beeping in your ear? You just kind of like, it's not like you're changing elevation and, your ears pop. This is like you almost hear like a buzzing or a beep in your ear. You could have clear hearing, harmonics and dissonance. Okay. So yeah. And it's just about figuring out what your intuitive language is. What is that spiritual sense telling you? Okay. So a beep happened, what does that mean? So for me, I started getting the spiritual sense more and more. Like, I feel like I've always had it, because I've always been a great speaker and writer, and I can articulate things well. Sometimes I feel like words aren't even from me. They're from whoever's helping me on the other side, right? And so what I noticed is that I would start having these different sensations in my ears. Not only would I hear things, quote unquote, like internally, right? But I would also have sensations in my ears, sometimes ringing in my ears. And I started to understand an intuitive language that was coming through. It's kind of like having a dictionary or a decoder. Okay, so I'm feeling a pain in my right ear. Don't worry, it didn't hurt bad. But I'm feeling this ache. What does that mean in my right ear? And then when I hear it in my left ear, what does that mean? How is that different? And that's where it comes to interpretation and decoding. And that's what intuitive language means, is you can have the spiritual sense, but have no idea what it's telling you. And that's where you need to develop your own intuitive language. Everyone's language is different. You can only be fluent in your own language. So, I've only met one other person who had this situation that I'm explaining with my ears, and I don't even think it happened exactly how it happens to me. But like, for example, in my right ear, if I feel a pain or something like that, or an ache, it means lean in more, or this is truth, like you're on the right path. And if I hear it in my left ear, it means not the right path. Stay away from that, or avoid that, or look somewhere else. The answer's not there. So then the other thing is, I've noticed that I get tickles as well. And the tickles mean something slightly different. Like, instead of right track, it's more like, yeah, yeah, keep going. Like almost like a curiosity, like you're getting closer, almost like warmer, hotter, like warmer, warmer. Whereas the ache is more like hotter. So there's a little language there. Now the benefits with this is you can navigate as something's happening. So do you know how bats navigate? Bats. I said bats. The animals that sleep upside down, they navigate through their hearing. It's like radar. And so think about it like that. It's like if I have my ears going off constantly, sometimes it can be chaotic, and I'm still learning just like you are, and, but it does. It's like, okay, a little like this way. Yes. Oh, okay. But not this way. Okay. So it's definitely helping me navigate information. And it's also convenient because when I'm talking with a client and if they say something and my right ear starts to ache, I'm like, oh, that's a writer downer. That's important. That might be a thread we need to pull on some more, versus like my left ear. If they're saying something, it could be like, no, I don't actually think that's right, or change the subject, or, we need to focus on something different. So it's great in the moment because we can navigate. And then, as far as the challenge, it can be distracting. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, what this person is telling me is true. I just know what they're telling me is true, but my left ear's hurting. Why? And sometimes it's because interference is coming in. And I feel like as far as what you're working on, especially when you're up leveling or when you have like this important purpose, or you have this positive movement or message, I feel like the enemy, the interference gets louder. And that's why it's so important to learn how to clear that interference so that you don't get dissuaded when in fact, you're on the right track. So that's what I mean. It can be distracting because someone could be telling me something that's true, but my left ear's hurting. So it's not that it's untrue. It's just I have interference because of the nature of what we're talking about, because it's so important, so uplifting, so positive that it can change lives, and something's trying to dissuade us. So anyway, it can be distracting, can be loud, it can be uncomfortable to decipher. And here's the other thing, your physical sense of hearing, you tend to be more sensitive to loud noises. So for example, for as long as I can remember, I've always had to sleep with a fan, that white noise, to block out any other noises that might be happening on the street, next to my house, or, whatever. Now, snoring is a totally other. I just outed my husband, but, he doesn't snore all the time. But, that's a problem. Sometimes I can lose a lot of sleep. I'm sure probably some of you can relate.